push this button. One button should go up, and then when you see this here,
Okay.
then you can speak and go up. And then when you're done. Button here when you're ready to speak.
Talk, yeah.
The mic will go on. You just push the button here,
Okay.
and then when you're
Okay, it looks like our two of our council colleagues have now been able to successfully connect. So I'd like to welcome Councillor Christian Strachan and Councillor Debbie Wilson. The rest of my council colleagues are here, so welcome colleagues who are in the room with me and those who are joining online. We're going to call the meeting to order at 6:37 p.m. and this is the regular meeting of council on June 9th. I'll look to one of my colleagues to read the land acknowledgement who's here in the room. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation, or as they phrased it in Edmonton, reconciliation, which I think is important too. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just some quick notes before we start this evening. I'd like, on behalf of council, and I'm sure colleagues and municipal staff who are here this evening alongside community members would agree that it was yet another very successful Hay Day. If you weren't able to make it, it was there. The Kemptville District Hospital Auxiliary was marking the 65th anniversary of Hay Day, recognizing that there were a couple that were obviously not held during the pandemic, but otherwise Hay Day has done remarkably well. So I want to congratulate the over 330 volunteers that were part of the Hay Day efforts. And I know that as of early Saturday, they were very optimistic that they would meet or exceed their $50,000 goal. So once again, congratulations to everyone who helps make it such a success, and to our community and neighboring communities for coming out in droves. It's always well attended. As well, I would like to note there were a number of other community events on the weekend. We had the honor of welcoming the OPP Golden Helmets Precision Motorcycle Team. So colleagues, for those of you who are at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, you missed quite a show. The Golden Helmets are an incredible, small but mighty team of expert motorcyclists, and they certainly provided a really compelling event for families and seniors and other motorcycle enthusiasts who came out to watch the event on Sunday. And we want to thank our Parks and Rec team for facilitating that opportunity for the Golden Helmets to be here. You'll also may know or recall that June is Pride Month, and there was a wonderfully colorful Pride Parade on Sunday again this year. And I realize all of these events take such commitment on the part of volunteers and participants who help to create meaningful opportunities for connection and celebration. So certainly we want to thank and recognize all of the efforts that went into the Pride Parade and after party. And then I'd also like to extend a very special congratulations to the Academy of Expressive Dance. They marked 35 years on the weekend. They held a special celebration in Spencerville. But of course, the Academy is a local homegrown dance studio that has really nurtured creativity, confidence, and a love of the arts in generations of young people. So we want to congratulate the Academy, and in particular, Andrea Goff, for the commitment and dedication she's demonstrated. So with that, colleagues, I think I've covered off most of what happened on the weekend. We'll look to the adoption of the agenda, and I'll look to see if there are any edits. I know under consent agenda, we'll be changing a few things, but we're not at consent yet. So I think looking to our new clerk, there are no other edits being proposed by staff and council colleagues. If that's the case, I'll look to you to move and second the consideration of the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor. And I will ask, are there any edits or changes that you wish to make to tonight's agenda? I'm not seeing any, so I will call the question on the agenda as presented. All in favor? Good, that carries. With that, we'll go to declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations of perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from items on the agenda this evening? Not seeing anything. We'll go then to our deputations and proclamations, and I understand we are welcoming Mr. Josh Winter. Is that the case? Okay, so I think you're going to come to the mic and say a few words. Welcome.
Test, test. Thanks, everyone. All right. Thanks for having me here tonight. So my name is Josh Winter. I live here in Kemptville with my family. We live in Equinell neighborhood in the latest phase, which we call Phase 5. And we moved in about 2 years ago this year, August, and the neighborhood's about 2.5 years old, from what I understand. We're having a little issue with the folks on River Road with their burning. So what's happening is they're burning what they're burning, and then the wind only blows our way. So it doesn't blow to the river. So it only blows into our neighborhood. And it's just happening too much that we're going outside and we're having to deal with this awful smoke. So what prompted me to come here is that about 5 weeks ago, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I wanted to go for a walk because I didn't really get outside that day. So I'd just been like the car or whatever. So I've been outside, but just not, outside for any length of time. So there's a little pond in our neighborhood, and sometimes I like to do a couple laps and then come back. So I told my wife I was just going to go out, do a couple laps around the pond, and then come back. When I went out, stepped outside my house, there was the burning smell, but I didn't think it was that bad. So it was probably 30 or 40% of what I'd consider a bad day for burning. So I decided to risk it, go outside. I did one lap around the pond and my throat became sore. So I was like, this is not good. Like I could sense that I was breathing in this stuff. So I went home. And the next day I woke up and I was terribly sick and I had to call in for a sick day. The next day I was even more sick. I had to call in another sick day. And the rest of the week I was just useless for my family because I was still sick, not fully recovered. So that's what prompted me to come here today. But okay, so the sore throat, you're probably thinking, okay, it could be anything. But I used to live in this town in South America. It was a city. It's called Cuenca. And Cuenca had terrible pollution. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city. Terrible pollution. The reason was they had these buses, and every time the driver would pick somebody up, they'd step on the gas, and then this huge plume of smoke would just eject out of the back. It was every single time he hit the gas, any bus in the city. So Cuenca was very polluted, even though it was just like this amazing city. So, but the entire time I lived there, which was about 4 or 5 months, the entire time I had a sore throat and a runny nose from that pollution. And then when I'd leave the city, my sore throat and runny nose would clear up. Then I'd head back to the city, sore throat and runny nose would start again. So I just got tired of breathing in all this polluted air. So I left to go to my future wife's city instead of where I was. So that's how I know the two are correlated. And the only 2 times I've ever had a sore throat from pollution is in Cuenca with the crazy 1980s style diesel buses and in my neighborhood here in Kemptville. Okay, cool. It's on the board. I don't think there's handouts, but it's on the board. So Equinell Phase 5 is just the 4 streets. It's Fisher Street, Kinderwood, Pacho Place, and there's one more street I'm not thinking of. And directly to the north of that is, we've got River Road, and then we have Beckett's Landing. So the River Road, there's houses on River Road that directly back onto our neighborhood. So it's not like there's a gap or anything. There's just a fence, and then you have the folks that live on River Road. And a couple of those folks are active burners, and their smoke definitely comes into our neighborhood. When I didn't live in this neighborhood, I lived somewhere else in Kemptville. I used to like to go out at night and get some exercise. And that worked great. I go at 9:30, 10 o'clock, do a couple laps on the sidewalk. Everything's great. But when I saw this neighborhood, this one has sidewalks plus lighting on the sidewalks, which is pretty unique for Kemptville. That combo isn't really that common. So it was a new build. We decided to go for it, and we bought here. But I can't go outside at 9:30 and 10 o'clock anymore because I don't trust the air quality. Just in case I don't want to get sick. I don't really want to be breathing in all this stuff. So I don't even go out anymore. So one of the reasons we moved here, I can't even use the neighborhood for what our family intended it for. So I got a couple more points here. I just wanted to talk about, so when they are burning, like during the day, and my kids are playing in the backyard. We have families in the backyard, and we don't have fences, so everyone's just kind of playing together in the backyard. But when they're burning, I have to bring them inside, which kind of stinks because you want kids to be able to play outside, right? So I have to bring them in. They don't really understand why. It's just because I don't want them breathing that air. I asked ChatGPT to type up something I could read to you guys, just so it's not just telling a bunch of stories. So it says, you can look up other resources if you don't like this. They all kind of say the same thing. I'll just read 2 paragraphs here. Even short-term exposure to smoke containing fine particle matter, PM2.5, can irritate the airways in children and trigger respiratory symptoms, since these particles penetrate deep into the lungs and can cause inflammation on contact. Children are more vulnerable because their lungs are still developing, and they breathe more air relative to their body size than adults. Repeated exposure increases the risk of ongoing respiratory irritation and can contribute to reduced lung function over time. So I asked it, and it said burning wood and leaves produces fine particle matter, PM2.5. So that's part of what the folks are burning. And then I asked it a little bit about how these bylaws came about and how that whole thing works, because I'm no expert. And then I pulled this one paragraph from that. So this one paragraph says, open air burning is permitted in rural areas because it's intended for low density properties where agriculture and land clearing activities are common, and when there is sufficient separation from other dwellings due to reduce smoke impact. This allowance is based on the assumption that rural burning occurs in open conditions with natural dispersion and minimal impact on neighboring residences. So I'm looking at these folks, and they probably bought their house like 20 or 30 years ago, because these houses never go up for sale. So probably they were thinking, okay, I'm rural now, but one day I may not be rural. I mean, there's a forest back there, but I think it's reasonable that, okay, there's no longer forest, they no longer get to burn. They lose their burning privileges. I think that's a reasonable way of thinking of it. I don't think anybody's thinking, okay, I bought rural, but now I get burning privileges for the rest of my life. I don't think anybody's thinking that. So, yeah, there's no grandfather rule. There's nothing like that where they get to burn for the rest of their life. I think it should be solely based on population density, like how many houses are there. And we have 141 houses that are directly back onto here, which is about 400 people. So that's a huge population density change. So I think it's reasonable that the lines get updated now, because there's no more forest back there for them. I was thinking about what impact this would be to their lives. All I could come up with was that the people who do burn, I just took a guesstimate. There's about 35 homes. I just kind of went like that. I came up with the number 35 homes. I would just take a guesstimate that 6 to 8 of them are regular burners. Like I really have no idea. I just came across that number. But if that's somewhat reasonable or that's the number, then we're really just asking 6 to 8 people to switch to garbage bags, which they do probably in the wintertime anyway. So we're just kind of asking them to do it year round. And I think that's a really, really good trade-off. We're asking 6 to 8 people to switch to garbage bags. In exchange, our entire neighborhood of 400 people can get clean air all year round. So what else? I think that's it. I think that's all I had. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. I understand that the boundaries for a no-burn zone will be returning to council not this evening, but I think a little bit later in June. So we appreciate hearing your perspective. Thank you. Council colleagues, are there any questions? I'm mindful of time. We do have another delegation, but certainly I want to make sure that Mr. Winter has the opportunity to answer any questions from council colleagues. So Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Chief Urslack. Every January, I pay my $15 to get a burn permit. I live in a rural area, and I know you have a tracking system, so you'd be able to pull up the data along that section of River Road about number of burn permits filed, so you'd have that on record. You'd also have some record of any complaints about people burning garbage. And to Mr. Winter's deputation, he's very familiar with the smell of diesel fumes, obviously from your stay overseas. So I would just ask you, Mr. Winter, is it definitely wood smoke that you're burning or something else?
Yeah, the folks are burning, from what I can tell, leaves and wood.
Okay.
So, yeah. But I had another thought. If you're just unsure, just wait till somebody calls in and then head to my neighborhood at night and walk along the sidewalk. And then after, I don't know, 10 or 20 minutes or whatever, your mouth is going to fill with garbage. And that's from the air. From what I understand, the cool air is pushing the pollution down to the sidewalk level. So you're going to taste it in your mouth. And then if you look at the lights, they're going to get really hazy. And then that's the smoke as well, from how I understand it. So it's not, that's why I can't go out at night anymore to walk, because I don't trust the air anymore, because I don't know, I don't want to taste it because it's very thick, and I don't want to not taste it and have it be there just because it's not as thick. So I can't walk at night anymore because I don't trust the air.
No, I trust that it's very unpleasant for you and probably not safe for you in particular. I just wanted to clarify with the chief whether there was complaints about garbage, because that's not permitted. So just to get some clarity on what is actually happening from the chief's point of view. But thank you for your deputation. I appreciate it.
And Chief Ursak, would you like to speak tonight or a different evening in regards to that particular question?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can speak tonight if you wish. Just wanted to clarify that Deputy Mayor is absolutely correct. Garbage is not to be burned. So if you suspect that there is garbage being burned, call 911 and they will page me out. And I will go personally and check it out, or I'll have one of my officers go and check that out. Because that is not permitted. Diesel particulate that you're talking about when you were overseas, that's going to be a whole different ballpark than we're talking about here. However, again, if they're burning plastics, irritants like that, those are hydrocarbons as well. So, and that's why they're not permitted. So if you have an issue or anybody in that block has an issue, call us and we will go and investigate day or night.
Okay, thank you. From what I can tell, everything seems just like wood and leaves and grass. So I think they're probably following the rules. It's just that anything is annoying, right? Like imagine like a man or a woman taking their drink in a book and sitting on their porch, and now they have to breathe this in on a Saturday afternoon. Okay, no, have to come back inside because they're burning again. So that's a little bit of the frustration. So it's not just the health, it's like the general enjoyment of the air, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from as well.
Yes, and you're 100% right. The winds are definitely going to be coming from that northwest, blowing right towards you from River Road over the river, and then from River Road to you. So we'll have to look at this, and research this and see what we're going to do. But if there is any issues, don't hesitate to call for sure for now.
Okay, super, super. Thank you.
Okay, Council colleagues, any other questions? Certainly, we appreciate hearing your experience as a newer resident to Equinel in particular. So thanks for sharing your thoughts today.
Sorry, one last thing. So they're building more houses in Equinel. You probably knew that. So
Yes.
it's going to be even, it might impact those folks as well. I don't know. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, colleagues, I think we have one more delegation, and that's from the High School Reunion Committee. Is it Mr. Maxwell and colleagues? Ms. Tobin, others? Would you like 3 chairs? Was there a plan for 3 people to speak? We can give you 3 chairs? No? You sure? Okay. Okay, and I know Councillor Wilson's been keeping us posted on some of the activities and excitement that is building in regards to the 90th reunion. So we're excited to hear more about it.
Great. Thank you very much, Your Worship, and councillors and staff and members of the gallery. My name is Dan Maxwell. I'm the chair of the North Grenville District High School Reunion Committee. And with me tonight, Ruth Bond is our former treasurer and an alumnus of North Grenville. And Mrs. Tobin, former art teacher at North Grenville as well. And my student alumnus, Debbie Wilson, formerly Debbie Graham, who I'm sure you all know. The purpose of coming out tonight is just to inform you about our plans for the reunion, September 26th, 2026. And we're going to be celebrating 90 years of community schooling in North Grenville. We're hoping to have a fairly large crowd. We're holding it at the new North Grenville District High School. Well, not so new now, but newer. And we're having an event in the afternoon, basically 4 hours of a reception, and hoping to welcome back as many alumnus, staff, and students, maybe even in the school, to share some memories and reminisce, and hopefully catch up on many years that have passed between times that we spent here together. We started out about a year ago, well, a year and a month, I guess, doing a survey, and we had 549 respondents, and 79% said they would attend, and 21% said maybe. So we thought was a good number to go ahead with plans. So next. A little bit of history on the reunion. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Ruth, and she can bring you up on that.
Okay, thank you. So you can see the reunions that are listed there above. And the big thing to look at here is that we established a bursary in 1987. And okay, I can't see the screen now. There we go. So since 1987, maybe you could just bring it up here, Dan. I'll be able to read it then. Okay, here we go. Since 1987, $33,000 has been granted in bursaries to North Grenville students pursuing post-secondary education. And the bursary fund was made possible by profits from previous reunions and resulting in the investment returns. Now, there's some information that doesn't seem to be on that screen of other monies that we have actually sent to the school. We've actually paid to the school as well. Okay, so here we have it now. We have donated $19,500 directly to the school since 1987. So in 87, we donated $8,500 towards the purchase of chairs for the gymnasium. If you were a student at that time, you will know there were not chairs suitable for everyone to be assembled at one time in the gymnasium. There were no chairs available for the whole school. So we came in and gave $8,500 towards the purchase of chairs for that gymnasium. So then in 2007, we donated $7,500 for a new stage and theater area in memory of Roy Murphy. Now, Roy was the chair of our committee, and he was also a teacher at North Grenville. So they were technically redoing the stage area entirely with all of the technology, the newest and latest technology at that time. And then in 2012, we donated a gift of $3,500 to the school, which would have been after the last reunion. But our intent has always been to have bursaries, and we've just been very, very happy with the amount of money we've been able to donate in bursaries. So we're donating this year our 40th bursary, and we're very happy to have been able to do that.
Thanks, Ruth. So when we talked about it, we thought what we'd like to do is make it even 50 years, and if we could try and generate some funds out of this year's reunion, get about $15,000 and be able to contribute $1,500 towards an annual bursary for the next 10 years. So that's sort of our goal. But of course, like I said, the main purpose of the reunion is to bring people together and to celebrate 90 years of community schooling at North Grenville. Just next slide, sorry. Our committee members up there, some names you may know. I won't read them all, you can have a look. Next slide. We've set up a website and a Facebook event page. The website is ngdhs90.ca. We've contacted folks through direct mail as a result of the email addresses that people left us in the survey. So we do have a fairly extensive mail list for contact. We're hoping that the municipality may be able to help us out in terms of spreading the word as well. And it's really about just getting it out there. But good news, we're doing electronic ticketing, and as of today, we have 218 tickets sold in our early bird ticket sales. We extended our early bird ticket sales to June 14th. So we were going to go to May 31st, but we added an additional 2 weeks at that price, and things are going well, in my opinion. So the event itself, just a casual event at the school. Sorry. We have catered affairs coming in to do food and refreshments for us. There'll be lots of mixing and mingling. We're hoping to use both the cafeteria and the gymnasium at the school. And the capacity, I believe, from my conversations with the school is 900. So it's a lofty goal, but hopefully we can achieve that. Next, we're also encouraging after parties. So if you were in a particular graduating class, and there are a few of those already organized, and I'm sure people are kind of excited about spending time with their previous classmates specifically, and I'm hoping that all things work out well with these after parties after the event. Next. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, we've been in negotiations with the owner of the old North Grenville District High School, and we're hoping to be able to provide tours. But as I said, we're currently negotiating to see what the terms are going to be and to allow folks to get in and maybe check out some of the old classrooms and some of the area of the school. Although having been there for quite a while when I was here, and the state of that building, we'll see how that goes. How you can help us. In previous reunions, we've had a declaration from the municipality for a reunion weekend, reunion day for North Grenville. And just in terms of us helping us get the word out, that would be very, very useful for us, I think, if we could get a proclamation. But I'll leave that in your capable hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's exciting to hear more details and see that you've got quite a bit of momentum already. So I'll just ask council colleagues any questions at this stage in regards to the events that are coming up. There is a proposed recommendation that the municipality of North Grenville proclaim September 26, 2026 to be North Grenville District High School 90th Reunion Day celebration in North Grenville. And so I'll look for a mover and a seconder. I believe Councillor Wilson would like to move and is doing so, and Councillor Strachan will second. So thank you very much. I might just ask, can one attend the event as the parent of future alumni? I know myself, I have 3 kids at North Grenville High. Councillor Strachan has 2 remaining kids. So is the event open just to alumni, or is it a broader community?
Oh, we would love to have you. The school are planning to do a fair bit of what would you call it? It's the week before is their open house.
Oh, right.
So we're trying to coordinate with them so that a lot of the displays and stuff will be still up so that alumni can see what's actually happening at the school as
nice.
well.
Wonderful. That's great.
Yep.
Okay, good stuff. Well, we got that answer. Is there anything else, colleagues, you'd like to bring to the table? Deputy Mayor?
Just if you do manage to get a tour of the old high school, please include council.
You'd like to see it?
Yeah, please. We have plans.
Yeah, I understand you've had some contact with the owner, so there are some discussions happening now about getting access to the school. So, and certainly we know that the owner, if he hasn't told you, has a connection, I think, through in-laws to North Grenville High. So if you haven't had the opportunity to ask him, it would be good to draw that connection. So he's certainly aware, I think, of some of the history and the warm sentiments for that particular building in the community.
That's great.
All right. Councillor Wilson, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Peckford. Yes, Councillor Strachan and Mayor Peckford do have graduates and will have graduates. The council should surely attend, which would be great. The ticket sales are going well. The one thing that I did want to mention is, yes, the owner of the old high school, who we've been in contact, would be happy to let us have a tour, but there's some things that we have to go through. There's something else I wanted to mention, and I just drew a blank again. And this is common in me. I don't know if I should even be talking. White horses on the brain.
We appreciate you joining from across the country after a busy week. I should recognize that 3 of my colleagues worked very hard and had full days at the Federation of Canadian Municipality meetings in Edmonton. So kind of them to join us on the heels of their return, or obviously connect into this meeting virtually. Councillor Wilson, if you think it might come to you later, then certainly we'll give you that opportunity. And if there are no other hands, then I think I can call the vote. So all in favor? Great. Well, congratulations on your effort and on the 90th year, and I'm sure it'll be a smashing success. So,
Thank you.
all right. Perfect. So with that, colleagues, we're going to move on. There are a number of items on the consent agenda this evening. Earlier today, I advised that I would like to pull from the consent agenda the Arts and Culture Development Fund funding allocations, as well as the council compensation final report. or I should say finance report, not final report. And I understand that in regards to H3, which is the Old Town Campbell BIA Improvement Area Levy, that's looking to be deferred, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll pull it from the consent agenda, and then I think we'll have to move to defer it to tomorrow's meeting. Okay. I think it will still require a deferral because once we move it off the consent agenda, it remains on the agenda until we've dealt with it in some way, shape, or form. So colleagues, those are my proposed changes to the consent agenda. Is there anything else that colleagues wish to pull? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Just a point of clarification. So we will be pulling H3 from the agenda in order to defer it later.
Indeed.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? I don't see my Zoom. Oh, I've just lost sight of my virtual colleagues. Okay, there we go. Don't see any hands. So then I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the amended consent agenda, colleagues. If Deputy Mayor and Councillor Sullivan wouldn't mind moving and seconding the amended agenda, then I will call the vote. All in favor? Great. So then we will go to H3. That is now on our agenda. It has been moved from consent. It's back on our agenda. And I believe CEO Dunlop will have to defer the consideration of this levy bylaw until tomorrow. So with that in mind, Deputy Mayor, if you don't mind, the CEO is asking that we defer this item until tomorrow. Would you mind moving that, or would you have comments?
I do have comments.
Great, okay. Well,
But I will be moving it to be deferred.
okay. Well, then why don't we get the deferral on the table, and then you can
Sure.
speak to the aspects of the deferral and the related bylaw. So if you don't mind moving, we'll have Councillor O'Sullivan second the deferral of this item till tomorrow's meeting. And I will welcome discussion. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not to preempt the conversation tomorrow, is that when we're deferring it to? I just thought I would read an email that went out this morning in the hopes that current members and new members of the BIA are informed of an issue with the property tax bill. So the email, it's very brief, I'll just read it. This comes from the Executive Director, Talia Hurljack. We are aware that the recently issued commercial property tax bills did not have the applicable BIA levy cap applied. The municipality has been notified, and we are currently working with staff to address the issue. We appreciate your patience and understanding as the matter is addressed, and will provide further updates as they become available. So I imagine those updates will occur tomorrow. I just thought, in case not everybody's on the newsletter, this went out by email. I'm hoping to get that message out to existing and new members. Thanks.
Thank you. I understand that there was some concern expressed this morning, just given the size of some of the tax bills that went out. So Ms. Dunlop, I don't know if you have further comment at this stage.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I don't have any additional comment at this time, but in order to raise the BIA levy as required, there were 10 businesses that were overcharged. We have now inputting the cap into our tax system, and we will make sure that we are reaching out to everyone, including the BIA, to assist collaboratively in this communication.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to add anything before I call the vote on deferral? Not seeing anything. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? All right, so the BIA levy is moved to tomorrow. And next, we have the council compensation report. And Ms. Wheeler, are you presenting briefly on that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Certainly. So this is the 2025 Council Compensation Report for information purposes. It's under the Municipal Act of 2001. So council will notice that from prior years, the treasurer's statement of remuneration and expenses is in more detail. So that's in conjunction with renewing the bylaw 1825 last year. Finance worked with the clerk's department to reorganize the GL accounts. I also implemented cost centers for each of the council members so that when expenses are coming to our accounts payable, then they are appropriately entered directly to the council member rather than after the fact and going back months later to try and reconcile that. So with the new journal entries, GL accounts, with cost centers, we have the total expenses of 290,186.54. And I can also provide council with the budget. So actuals were approximately 290,000 and the budget was 337,000. And I'll be happy to take any other questions from council.
Council colleagues, any questions in regards to the report at this stage of the game? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I don't have any questions other than to Ms. Carly Wheeler. You said the budget was 337,000?
That's correct, Deputy.
So council left some money on the table? Is that true? About $47,000? Great.
Yes, 290,000 is lower than 337.
Thank you for that.
So it is
I usually
under,
rely on
under
Councilor
budget.
Strachan for those kind of mathematical calculations, but yes, so thanks. It's great. Even more of a bargain.
Ms. Wheeler, I did want to ask about the presentation of some of the costs under legal and services. Certainly, I understand that in certain instances where legal fees are incurred for a land planning appeal tribunal matter, that obviously the municipalities adopted a best practice to capture those fees elsewhere in a legal operational line. For all sorts of planning matters, we know that legal expenses can be incurred. For the purposes of the remaining legal expenses that appear here, I understand it's in regards to any particular investigations, particularly those that fall under the Integrity Commissioner. My understanding is that any member of the public can submit a Integrity Commissioner complaint. Some get investigated, some don't, depending on a threshold. I find the presentation of legal fees in this chart to almost suggest that individually we're incurring expenses related to legal engagement. I'd be interested to know what other municipalities are doing in this regard in terms of how the fees associated to an Integrity Commissioner, which is a mandatory, obviously, engagement by every municipality in Ontario to have a municipal lawyer on, call, if you will, for IC and other complaints. I just wonder if there might be another way to present legal and services, just recognizing that a member of the public might look at this and see that every council member equally incurred $6,224.17 in legal fees, when really these expenses are accumulated by council as a whole, in effect, for doing the work of council. And sometimes, obviously, the members of the public have reason to believe, or certainly a resident within the community, if not beyond, might have reason to want to activate an Integrity Commissioner complaint. So with that in mind, I'd love to see if there are other ways to present this information, just so it more accurately captures the activity at play, because the way it looks now, it feels a bit curious that we would have so precisely and equally incurred all of those legal expenses, if you will, in exactly the sort of same manner. So I don't know if you have any comment on that this evening, but that's an area I know, working with my county council colleagues, I think the presentation of legal fees may look a bit different. So perhaps that's a conversation you can have with the counties of Leeds and Grenville.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. So the legal and services was divided evenly amongst council member. So with the note there, it does say some expenses have been evenly distributed if such an expense was incurred for council as a whole. It should also probably under the legal services also be, and will also, if such an expense it cannot be identified because with the practice of all of our legal invoices, the accounts payable will have the redacted version of it. And sometimes, depending on how it's coded, we don't have the cost center set up for that GL yet, but I can certainly contact the counties to see how they're showcasing their expenses for under legal.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, this is just an information report. I think we're just receiving this evening, if I'm not mistaken. Council receive. Any other questions in regards to the presentation of information? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, just in the efforts of transparency, I think the public should know the $31,000 includes legal fees for Integrity Commissioner complaints that were dismissed.
Correct. I believe that's the case. I'll confirm that with Ms. Dunlop. Is that right?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. Yes, they were a closed meeting as well as Integrity Commissioner items that were dismissed.
Thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else, then I'll look to a mover and a seconder for receipt of the report. Deputy Mayor. And I'll look to one of my colleagues online. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And if there are no other questions, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. We'll move on. Arts and Culture Development Fund, funding allocations. I did want to pull this simply to share the good news. I know a lot of hard work was undertaken by the committee and by staff, and there's some really wonderful commitments and ideas initiated for support under Arts and Culture Development Fund. So I believe Ms. Torch will give us a quick overview.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. So this report is being brought forward just for information purposes and provide council with a summary of the 2026 Arts and Culture Development Fund intake and adjudication process. The Arts and Culture Development Fund was established to support projects and initiatives that contribute to arts, culture, creativity, inclusion, and community engagement within North Grenville. For the 2026 intake, 6 applications were received requesting approximately $12,000 in funding. Applications were reviewed by an adjudication committee consisting of municipal staff and community representatives and a counselor using the approved program criteria and guiding principles. Following the review process, 3 applications were recommended for funding at the maximum amount of $2,000 each. Compassionate North Grenville, we're supporting the gathering place for compassionate sessions. North Grenville Arts Guild, which will be creating and connecting community art workshops within North Grenville, and then the Kentville Legion Pipes and Drum, where they are going to learn to play in the pipes and drums. These projects demonstrate strong alignment with the goals of the program, including community participation, accessibility, cultural enrichment, sustainability, and measurable community impact. 2 applications were not recommended for funding, and 1 application was deemed ineligible as it did not meet the residential requirements for the program. So a total of $6,000 has been allocated through this intake, leaving a balance of $4,000 within $10,000 of approved budget for 2026. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank both the adjudication committee and all the applicants for their time, effort, and commitment to supporting the arts and culture in our community.
Thank you very much. And I believe Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wilson, do you sit on the Arts and Culture Committee?
Yes, we both do.
Okay, so I have maybe a question, just in terms of the feedback to those applicants who weren't successful. It's great to see the ones that were. I'd be curious to know, in the case of the Kentville Youth Musical Theatre Company, if there was any feedback provided to them and potentially the other applicants who weren't successful in regards to how they might be able to reframe or reconsider their application for a future intake. Obviously, in some cases, one could argue that the Youth Musical Theatre Company has a broader community benefit, if you will. I certainly would see it that way, but totally accept that the acquisition of operational equipment per se perhaps didn't lead staff in the committee to believe it would have measurable community impact in the long term. But just curious to know, is there a way to provide feedback to some of the applicants, or potentially at some point to potentially broaden the scope at some point if the committee deemed it as necessary? And again, I ask simply from curiosity. I haven't spoken to this group. I was not aware of the merits of this application. So just simply from the point of view of providing that feedback to groups who have some hopes possibly of being successful under this fund. What's that feedback mechanism so that they can learn and potentially seek support for another or related initiative?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Peckford. So we actually did just that. So each of the groups that we did not move forward with did receive a detailed email in what they can do to enhance their future applications. So specifically for NG Pride, we actually outlined exactly what the committee would like to see to them so that we can ensure that their project moves forward next year, so they have all the information. And similarly, we did the same with KYMTC. We explained why why the committee deemed them or determined that their request was not didn't fall under the policy or their guidelines, and we explained what they can do in the future to actually be successful. So we did do exactly that, and we outlined everything for them.
Okay, great. Any other comments from members of the committee? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, sure, certainly. And I'd just like to make the point, well, first of all, thank you to Director Torch and the rest of the PRC staff. These kind of grants, these small grants, are less rigorous than, say, grants from upper levels of government, whether it's the province or the federal ministries. And so the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Advisory Committee looks towards this process as a learning experience for some, new and maybe less experienced arts groups. Having to go through this process tunes them up for applying for upper level of government, much larger grants that are a little bit more rigorous in terms of eligibility and the kind of criteria that they have. So I think that's a very important part of this process, is that they do get that kind of detailed response if they're not successful that Ms. Torch has outlined. Thank you.
Okay, great. Councilor Wilson, I know you sat on the committee. Do you have any additional comments? No? Okay. Excellent. Well, it's nice to see that the fund exists and that groups are pursuing it, and I look forward to further iterations down the road and more successful grant applications. So colleagues, the recommendation is that council receive report number PRC 2026-013, being the 2026 Arts and Culture Development Fund funding allocation report for information purposes. Deputy Mayor, Councilor Wilson, would you like to move in second? All right. And if there are no other questions, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, excellent. Thank you. So I believe that concludes the items that were pulled from the consent agenda, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So colleagues, we'll go next to minutes of previous meetings. You'll see that there are a number being presented this evening: May 13th, May 26th, special council meetings of April 9th, as well as regular scheduled meetings of April 15th and April 21. So colleagues, I'll look to you for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Stracan, thank you. And might I ask if there are any comments or questions in regards to the minutes? I'm not seeing any. All right, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? Those carry. So with that, we'll move on. There are no closed items this evening, and we therefore can move straight to reports. And do we have we have Mr. Finley here to speak to the municipal drain update. And I should also recognize that Mr. Lorne Franklin is here from Robinson's Consulting and is available for comment and questions. So we'll let Mr. Finley present the overview, and I believe then we'll invite Mr. Franklin to come up in the event that he can also answer some questions that might be raised by the report. I also will recognize Mr. Jim Beveridge, who has been part of this discussion from the earliest of stages in the most recent engagement with Robinson. So I may recognize him as well, but we'll start with Mr. Finley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report tonight is to request for an extension of the Colonnade Municipal Drain Engineers Report. And this is to ensure compliance under the Ontario Drainage Act. So if Council will remember, Back in 2024, Robinson Consultant, the group that Lauren works for, was appointed by the municipality or by council to complete an engineer's report on this drainage area. Under Section 39 of the Ontario Drainage Act, it is a requirement that after 1 year of the appointment, there either is the report is filed with the clerk, the drainage report or the engineer's report, or an extension is requested through council. Of course, we are a little bit longer than that 2024, a year after the 2024 allocation, and that was brought to our attention. Staff moved to bring this forward. So at this point, what we anticipate, and again, Lauren can help provide some more information on that, is that we do anticipate the draft report is completed in the fall of 2027 and are looking for that extension to be approved by council. So that is the basis for why the report is here, but between us, we are happy to answer any questions from council.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, I'll turn to council colleagues in regards to the information that's been outlined, and we'll go from there. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Finley. I guess my questions are for Mr. Franklin concerning the report and the delay in it coming here. Mr. Franklin, and forgive me, Madam Mayor, if I take up most of the oxygen as far as asking questions. I have a reputation for being fascinated with drainage, because it is fascinating, and may have more questions than the rest of council. But I'd be happy to cede my time if any of my council colleagues would like to weigh in. So I'll try and be brief at the beginning, but we'll see how this goes. So first of all, thank you for being here to answer some questions. I know from my limited experience, and a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. I think you'll agree, especially when we're talking about drainage. But from my limited experience, I appreciate the complexity of the Drainage Act. And you certainly have a lot of experience. You're one of the few engineering firms that deals in this area. And so I've got a lot to learn still. But I would ask you, first of all, like on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of complexity or challenging files, how would you, with 10 being very challenging, where would you place this particular file that we're calling the Colonnade, what are we calling it? We're calling it the Colonnade Municipal Drain Update, right? So I understand there isn't a municipal Colonnade municipal drain, but hopefully there will be. So
Go ahead.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would put this probably at a 5 or 6. It's not that complex of a project. However, there were some complexities that were added to the project, one of them being a request to investigate more than just one option, and that has added some time to it. So that probably puts it more at like the 6 range. Not one of the most complex projects I've worked on, but there's certainly things that have taken time.
yeah, I'd agree that it has taken time, as Mr. Finley outlined. Your firm was appointed in June of 2024 with a 1-year deadline mandated under the Drainage Act to come back with a preliminary report. I think that's what it's called, a preliminary report. Is that correct? Is that what we were expecting in June of 2025?
We have a mandate to produce a full report, so not a preliminary report. The preliminary report that you're speaking of, I guess, would be the investigation into alternative options. So we have already provided that to staff and received direction to proceed on really what was the only viable option.
The only viable option, and that option is number 1, in your opinion?
Yeah, the route that water currently flows down the rail corridor to its outlet into the Sparks-Thompson Municipal Drain and across the rail corridor and ultimately outletting into the Rideau. That was what we determined to be the only viable option. Other options that were considered were along Highway 43 and a storm sewer system. However, we were much too late in the current construction process and design to be accommodating a storm sewer in that process. I know that section of 43 is currently ripped up, so, and we would not be done a report yet, so.
Oh, I see. So, but if
But
a
other than
report
that,
had
it wasn't a
comment,
viable option anyways, but
if a report had come on June 2025, would it have been still non-viable?
it still would not have been viable due to utility conflicts and size constraints.
Okay. So my understanding, and again, it's limited, but my understanding is that the impact of the water flowing up the drainage ditch, it flows into the Sparks-Thompson municipal drain. And do you know when the last time there was any remedial work or maintenance of the Sparks-Thompson drain?
I'm not specifically aware of when there was work done on the Sparks-Thompson, no.
Mr. Findlay, would you be able to answer that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we don't have that on hand at the moment, but we can look back at our records and get back to you.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that, as well as the Sparks-Thompson connects, as I understand it, to the Arcan drain to the Rideau River. And so I'd be interested also, Mr. Finley, in having the record for when that was last maintained, or a request to have that maintained by the affected property owners. So if you could get back to me with those two questions, that would help. And so I think the question is that we're looking at considerable urgency, given that the water flowing up the drainage ditch, which is not a natural water course, the drainage ditch, the railway drainage ditch was constructed in order to just deal with the water flowing off the railway bed. It wasn't designed to, for example, accommodate all the runoff of the Colonnade retail subdivision. And the retail subdivision Colonnade is currently expanding. We have Myers Motors building on a lot within that catchment area, as well as a brand new hotel. So there'll be more demand on that railway ditch. So I don't think it's a minor, and forgive me for making an assumption, it's not a minor demand that we'd be putting on a new municipal drain if it ran up the railway ditch. So we're looking at the catchment area that the Sparks-Thompson drain accommodates is a large, in terms of hectares, is a very large area. It's much greater than simply the Colonnade. So eventually, once the runoff from the Colonnade subdivision and the associated lands that currently drain into the railway ditch, once that is constructed and connects into the Sparks-Thompson, eventually the Arcan drain into the Rideau River, it's serving a very large area, much larger than Colonnade. Would you agree?
Yes, and we do have some ability under this report, even though it's just for what we're calling the Colonnade branch. As the drainage engineers, we have a responsibility to ensure that that Colonnade branch is taken to a sufficient outlet. So our current mandate does include some review of the Sparks-Thompson and anything downstream to make sure that any flow that we do bring through the Colonnade branch is adequately accommodated in those other branches. So there is some extra review there as well.
And will you be reviewing the Sparks-Thompson as well as the Arcan drain as part of your report in terms of its capacity to handle additional flow from the Colonnade area or the area that is captured?
We have currently undertaken some review on the Sparks-Thompson. One of the things that we are currently waiting for is access for a hydrovac for the to expose fiber optic utilities and other utilities that run along the rail corridor for the replacement of the ultimate replacement of the culvert that forms the crossing under the rail for the Sparks-Thompson. So that is there. Ultimately, we believe that the remainder of the Arcan and the Sparks-Thompson likely provide sufficient outlet. There's still some work to finalize that, but We are quite certain at this point that the culvert on the Sparks Thompson under the rail corridor would not be sufficient, and we do need to get those utilities exposed so that we can properly finalize the design.
And when you were awarded the contract in June 2024, appointed in June 2024, how soon were you aware of some of these obstacles? Shortly after, or were you aware of it in June 2025?
So the viability of that culvert became evident after we completed our hydrology and hydraulics, which has only been recently completed now, so.
Okay, and what is the rationale for asking for a further extension to the fall of 2027? We're now June 2026, so that's more than a year's time. Given the urgency, as I feel, of getting some work done, given the development that's planned in the future for the area that flows into it.
The main thing I would say is, well, we're still awaiting confirmation on the availability to get the access to do that final design. That design then needs to be completed. And then it gets submitted to, once the design is complete and there's a draft report, we submit the draft report to environmental agencies for review, and their typical review time is 4 to 6 months, possibly longer.
Okay.
So in order to be able to finalize our design, get that report out, send it for environmental review, get that back, make any edits, and get that out for distribution to council, which would finalize that process. There is still a significant period of time that's left in order to do that.
And this is merely a report for information at this point in time. We don't have to land on any of the recommended options, or are you looking for direction in terms of pursuing option one? Mr.
My
Finlay?
understanding is formally what's being asked of council is to grant an extension, Mr. Finlay, if I'm not mistaken, because effectively without the extension, I think we are not in compliance with the Drainage Act in regards to the stipulated timelines for these sorts of things. Mr. Finlay, have I read that right?
Excuse me, correct, Madam Mayor, that's why we're here tonight, is to request that extension under the Drainage Act.
And if I might, Deputy Mayor, and I know we've been at this a long time, so we may take a short break before concluding this item. I think, of course, you can see that there's a lot of enthusiasm for moving this, I think, to the final stage. Just building on Deputy Mayor's questions, if I'm not mistaken, the extension would allow for everything inclusive of the expansion or the modifications to the basin that's being proposed to change. Is that correct? So the extension assumes that you've done everything and you've brought the file to a close. Is that why the extension period is so long?
Yeah, the extension period would allow us enough time to hopefully get that culvert hydrovac and expose the utilities,
Gotcha.
finalize that design, finalize a draft engineer's report, submit that to the DFO and the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, initiate their period of time for review, which would be 4 to 6 months, receive that back, finalize the report, get that out in final draft to the municipality, receive approval to prepare it for the meeting to consider, and then finalize that report and get it out, printed, copied, whatever, for distribution to the public in advance of a meeting to consider, which then takes another month after it's been distributed. So.
Understood. And so this is all in the design and consultation phase with affected landowners. It doesn't take into account the actual modifications of the municipal drain. Is that correct?
Correct. This is so the action under section 39 takes us to the meeting to consider. So when it first comes back for first and second reading in front of council. So that's not construction.
Understood. Okay. And then that, if you don't mind, just another question that's been looming for me is in terms of some of the financial implications, right, which we understand are yet to be fully determined until you've had obviously the benefit of more engagement in the field and more conversation with other engineers and yourselves. What is the, do you have any understanding of whether or not costs could be a prohibiting factor, or is it your assessment just sort of based on you doing this for as long as you have that? I know the costs get shared between landowners and the municipality, if I'm not mistaken. So do you see the cost as being prohibitive, fundamentally, is my question, in terms of proceeding with the option 1 recommendation? Is that a fair question? I ask it naively.
It's difficult to say because the design hasn't been finalized. Likely not the most prohibitive I've seen. The Colonnade branch does have a lot of urban development features, which hopefully are more suited to paying than an individual owner.
Right.
Within the drainage area, I hope that they're prepared to pay their fair share.
Perhaps more of a loaded
As
question
well
than
as,
I intended.
some of this is municipal land, so the municipality is going to be on the hook for their fair share of this land as well.
Okay.
I don't see it as being prohibitive to an individual landowner.
Mhm. Understood. And I'll ask CEO Dunlop to add.
Just to add on to that, Madam Mayor, the idea is that once the catchment area is complete and we have the homeowners, the landowners, et cetera, just like in municipal drain cleanouts of the past and updates, et cetera, there will be a certain amount attributed to each of those properties. And of course, the United Counties, as well as the municipality and Colonnade and all the other landholders in the catchment will be assigned their proportionate share. And as we've heard tonight, we don't anticipate that being onerous, but until we're complete and actually have tender numbers, we won't know what those specific numbers actually are.
Understood. So again, for my own edification, the point this evening, and looking to you, Deputy Mayor, because I know you've had a lot of questions, is to render the municipality in compliance with the Drainage Act in regards to the investigation underway, with a recognition that staff direction has already been issued, if you will, under Mr. Finley to proceed with the option 1, which is obviously the most obvious. One could argue, again, I say that without being a drainage expert, but given what the report says, I can see the logic of wanting to proceed with that option 1. Are there other questions, colleagues, at this stage? Okay. Thank you very much. I know we have Mr. Beveridge here, and Mr. Beveridge, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add as someone that's been involved in the process. And okay. Right. Okay. So, Mr. Beveridge, because typically comments from the public need to be on the record, if you want to restate this for the record, you should come down and say it at the mic. That way it's fully captured and minuted, and then perhaps I have a couple of questions for CEO Dunlop and Mr. Finley, so we might take a quick break before bringing this matter to a close. Thank you, Mr. Beveridge. I apologize. It's just the protocol for comments from members of the public. Yep, there you go.
Red light's on, so we're in danger. I have a couple concerns, but more things dealing with the actual Drainage Act, which aren't something that's pertinent to tonight's decision. The one thing I will say is that we have continued for a number of years since it was the municipality was notified that there was a problem with the legality of the drainage from that quadrant for any new development. I'm a little worried that we don't know for sure if the new, as Lauren refers to it, being a branch, which I do believe it should be a new drain, but that's more of the act again. But what happens if we continue to do new development and it's found that that culvert can't be rehabilitated and we can't get adequate outlet and continue to put more water down there? You've got 4,000 plus hectares of land that are affected by continually piling up water into the MTO land in the area of the 3 municipal drains. And I guess my wish was we could do it faster than delaying it for another 18 months, because 18 months takes us to the point where maybe we're ready to start to put shovel in the ground. So, ultimately, the decision is of council, and your big problem is what are your alternatives? You only have one really decent player in this area to do the work, and if that's the time they need, then that's the time that they need. I just would like to say, though, it is disappointing that we're continuing to see that the properties that are being affected by Colonnade not having legal outlet, because there's no question that that water does go across private land. It's a private ditch. It may be a water course, but it's not a natural water course. I guess it's public information now of what it is in that quadrant. Thank you.
Okay. Anything for Mr. Beveridge? I'd like to actually suggest we take a short break at this point. I have a couple of questions for CEO Dunlop and Mr. Finley. So if Councillor O'Sullivan and Deputy Mayor, if you don't mind moving a short break. Thank you. That has been moved. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, thank you.
What was that?
Okay, we're reconvening at 8:11. We paused a discussion in regards to the Colonnade Municipal Drain update, PW 2026-017. Council colleagues, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add before we consider the proposed extension under the Drainage Act, Section 39, to be clear. So, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be prepared to move acceptance of the request for an extension, given that the time that's elapsed has been lengthy and I don't want to have council delay this any further. But I do take exception to the report in the way it's been framed. I have some problems with how the options are characterized. I don't believe, given the impact on the Sparks Thompson and Arcan drains and the catchment areas that they serve, I don't think and I'm speaking as if I'm a drainage engineer, that the modifications to the channel would be minimal due to what's described as an existing water course. It's not a natural water course, it's a railway ditch, so I can't presume to know what kind of engineering is involved, but I'm sure we'll find out when the draft report is submitted to the various review agencies. So I would just ask the Robinson consultants to expedite what they're in control of, so that there's no further delays and that we're moving as quickly as possible. So having said all that, I will move to accept the request for an extension. Thank you.
And I guess then the question to Mr. Franklin is it possible to expedite the Robinson portion of this effort, which obviously is a big part of it, but not all of it? And certainly, I think during the break, Mr. Franklin was speaking of the various other agencies that need to be consulted and in some cases have to approve particular proposed measures. So maybe, Mr. Franklin, you can just walk us through that.
So yes, we will certainly seek to expedite our timeline and approvals. The current process is getting the information for the culvert that goes under the rail corridor. So it's my understanding from staff now that there is a process in place to hopefully get that done, and that will allow us to finalize our work. We can seek to expedite the approvals process. Kind of a new process that we've been using is submitting some of the information for pre-consultation to the environmental agencies in advance of having a draft report. So we will seek to do that when the information is available, and that may expedite the process. However, the majority of the process that is left is DFO and Environmental Agency Conservation Authority approval. That does take up a significant period of time, and the timeline for their approvals, especially if they find something that they don't particularly like, or if they require additional study, that timeline is completely out of our control. So we don't have process on that. So I do appreciate that it has been moved that that our process be extended to November, and we'll certainly seek to expedite it in advance of that, but I can't make any promises, so.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, I just wanted to ask, I think what I was hearing you say is that you had a discomfort with modifications to the existing water course. And just because this is a council meeting, this is the only opportunity for council to formally engage with each other on this matter. I just want to be clear, do you have a lack of confidence in option one? And if that's the case, I think it would be helpful, certainly for me, to better understand what Mr. Robinson is proposing. I recognize Colonnade is a expanding commercial area. And to your point earlier, there's a lot of water that needs to be accommodated, and the way it's currently being accommodated, it appears to be woefully insufficient. So perhaps you could just elaborate, just so I'm clear on what you were highlighting as concerns?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I guess my concern is not with the option itself, but the way it's characterized, the way it's framed. I have other issues, but they're minor in comparison. And I just wanted to take the opportunity that I think the impact of a Colonnade municipal drain that connects to Sparks Thompson and then the Arcan drain impacts more than just Colonnade, but a much larger area which represents the catchment area of all those existing municipal drains. So characterizing it as minimal, I don't know. I find that difficult. So it's the way it's just the language of the report. It's not the option itself.
And Mr. Franklin, just to be clear from your perspective, the proposed modifications, or proposed modifications to the existing water course outletting to the Sparks Thompson drain, perhaps among others, do you see the changes as minimal, or do you think they're more extensive? When obviously you're the expert and have done this for a while, so where does it sit from your perspective?
The ditch that currently runs along the rail corridor that we would be utilizing varies in nature. Sometimes it's a well-defined ditch, still not of the adequate capacity to convey the flows, and it in some portions teeters out to almost nothing, but as far as we could tell, that was still where the flow went or where the flow ends up before it ultimately goes out. So it is the natural, well, I won't call it even natural, it's the current path of the water and the most viable outlet for the water at this point, and we need to redefine and construct that ditch to adequate standards and capacity, and it is currently not. So in the grand scheme of things, no, it's not, certainly not a minimal exercise. There's some significant construction to be done there.
And just as a follow-up, when these exercises are undertaken, clearly it's also with an eye to the future in terms of some of the pending growth. There was a reference to upcoming development as perhaps constituting or being a reason for a delay. Is it the case that at this stage of the game, the team would be modifying the drainage area to ensure that water flow for the next 10, 20 years could be easily accommodated? Or are we catching up for what hasn't sort of been done up to now in terms of the drain? How do you capture sort of that growth that we're seeing in the community?
So we certainly can't accommodate for anything that we aren't aware of. However, with the Colonnade development and the development area just north of Highway 43, I think it's currently owned by Montreal Best Carrier. That kind of, I think it's an auto park area, I'm not entirely sure. We are aware of those areas and we have accommodated for them. We can assume the Colonnade development, even though it's not fully developed now, that it will be fully developed and make sure that there's capacity to take that without altering it. But if somebody were to come with a proposal to add new drainage area or to modify that or intensify that in some way, we wouldn't be able to anticipate that. So
you work with what's known effectively, or what one can presume is likely to happen with the...
I would say the answer is yes, to the best of our ability.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Mr. Finley, did you want to add anything else in regards to the conversation before we bring things to a close?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just said we are working
Thank you.
in pace with Lauren and his team to make sure we can keep things moving along, and we will continue to stay in contact and keep the project moving.
Thank you. And I apologize, Councilor Strachan, you have your hand up. Thank you to our clerk for alerting me to that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think just as a general comment to the rest of council and ultimately to staff, I wouldn't characterize the involvement of the conservation authorities and the other environmental groups as part of the delay and in the extension request. I think it is part of the due diligence and the process that's required of them. It will happen during this extension time, but I don't believe that them in and of themselves are part of the reason for the delay. So just for clarification, because I think the wording can be somewhat nuanced on that, and interpretations can come out as a result of this, that folks think that perhaps the Conservation Authority is delaying progress. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilor Strachan. So if there's nothing else at this stage, then obviously, again, Council, the proposition this evening is that we grant the extension for the Colonnade Municipal Drain Engineers Report under Section 3.9 of the Ontario Drainage Act, RSO 1900, CD 17. Do I have a mover for the granting of the extension? Oh, you did move already, did it? Oh, sorry, didn't catch that. So Deputy Mayor has moved. Do we have a seconder yet? He did say he was willing to move. Okay, so we've formally captured the moving, and now we'll get a seconder. If I can get a seconder, anyone wishes to second? Councillor Sullivan, okay, thank you very much. So the motion's on the table, and we also accept and appreciate the collaboration of Mr. Franklin and Mr. Finley on expediting where possible the pieces of this puzzle that are within your control, certainly, and to some extent Mr. Finley's. And then my only other question before calling the vote is, how many kilometers of drain would we be dealing with when it comes to this particular area? I know it's the old rail trail that is now in our possession is part of the drain we're speaking of, but do you have a sense of how long that drain extends currently? And if you don't, it's totally fine. You can bring that back. I don't know if Mr. Finley, you have a better sense of it?
I'd have to get back to you, Madam Mayor, but I can give you the number.
But certainly more than a couple, right? It would be a fairly lengthy drain?
From Highway 43 to the location where we want to do the culvert investigation was 3 kilometers into there, so I would anticipate the branch would be about the same.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
There's a little bit of meandering and some extension beyond that, so it would be longer than 3 kilometers, but at minimum 3 kilometers.
At minimum 3. Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, I've learned a little bit more about drainage this evening, particularly as it pertains to this area. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here, to Mr. Finley and his team for the report, and Deputy Mayor for your good questions. And I'll call the vote. All in favor? All right. That carries. Thank you, council colleagues. I know this one took a little bit longer. And thank you again, Mr. Franklin, for being here. I appreciate it, and for the comments we received from a member of the public. And now we'll move on to the extension of interim control bylaw 4925 PD 2026-040. And I believe, Ms. Martin, you are here to speak to this.
Thank you, Your Worship. Both myself and Director Finley will be providing information related to this report. So I'll start us off. So before council this evening is a request to extend bylaw 4925, which is our interim control bylaw, originally passed June 24th of last year. It is in effect until June 30th of this year. The extension is necessary to provide staff with that additional year to complete our review on the municipality servicing policies that was originally identified in the interim control bylaw last year as the intent as to why we were implementing it. As a reminder, while the interim control bylaw is in place, it only affects the urban service area for the town of Kemptville. Building permits cannot be issued for new development that requires capacity from our water and wastewater system without the necessary approvals, which is done through our Committee of Adjustment. So the bylaw does provide some exemptions related to certain building activity, just as a reminder for council and the public. We do permit minor additions and repairs or renovations that do not require an increase in the wastewater capacity, accessory structures where there are no municipal services being required. And then the original bylaw included Schedule A, which listed projects that had already been granted capacity and therefore were allowed to proceed. So while the interim control bylaw is in place, it does support our ongoing expansion of our water pollution control plant while ensuring that development can meaningfully occur within our approved ministry limits for the plant. The study of our municipal servicing policies will assist in ensuring consistency between various municipal studies, including the infrastructure master plan, which is pending to be approved by council very soon, and that these policies are reflective of our development realities here in North Grenville. And we are undertaking as well the update of our official plan, where we also look at the servicing policies within that document. So at this time, I will turn it over to Director Finley to provide an update as to where we're at with the plant expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. So for council, just a quick update. We do anticipate to come back in June with a bit more details moving forward with Phase B of the expansion and kind of timelines for that. But at a high level, as council is well aware, we are currently full into construction at the water pollution control plant. We are looking to see our completion in early 2027. And at that time as well, we are looking to quickly move forward into Phase B of that expansion. So what we'll bring back later on, anticipated at the end of June, we are looking to go out to tender with that Phase B around fall of this year, with late fall of this year, with the anticipation award by January of 2027. So as the current construction is starting to wrap up, we are bringing on the next contract and contractor to complete Phase B. Phase B is anticipated to take us approximately 2 years, so the beginning of 2029 for completion. And that's when we're looking to see that we'll have our expanded capacity there. As a reminder, we were successful for Phase B for just about $25 million in terms of funding through the provincial funds. So that is helping us move forward with that portion of the project. In terms of the infrastructure master plan, as was mentioned, we do plan to bring that back to council as well to get that final version adopted, which will help us moving forward in terms of future planning for additional infrastructure. And that's the quick updates on kind of where we are in terms of the construction.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Martin. As I recall, Director Martin, the interim control bylaw deals with requests for capacity, and those requests are weighted through some matrix of, I seem to recall that matrix, that they're subject to evaluation and they're ranked in terms of priority. Now, we're asking for an extension. Are there any plans to change that matrix and how they're weighted in the interim?
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, certainly that's part of our review of our servicing policies to look at our current ranking system that was established by the capacity allocation bylaw to determine, is there a better way in how we can identify the allocation of capacity when we do have capacity that becomes available while we're going through the plant expansion. That would be brought back to council for their consideration and approval, moving through that study piece, expecting that in the first quarter of next year, where we, again, would look at how do we currently evaluate what's working, what's not, what are other municipalities doing, those best practices, and implementing something that could potentially reevaluate how we weight the various projects coming forward for the allocation of capacity when available.
Go ahead.
Follow up, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. So extending it for another year, do you anticipate amending it with this new matrix before this current extension expires?
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, the intent would be once the study is completed, we request that council would repeal the interim control bylaw. With an interim control bylaw, once it's put into effect, you can only extend it for an additional year. You can't go beyond that. So we would be looking in the first quarter of next year to have the study completed. And we may be in a position where we could ask council to remove the interim control bylaw completely. But again, we would have to provide an analysis as to where things are at in regards to the study as well as capacity allocation.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Martin. If a developer or a builder has been granted capacity and they have not used it within a year, then it can be taken away from them and given to someone else. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Sullivan, that is correct. We do have the provision in our capacity allocation bylaw where we can take back the capacity if they have not demonstrated any meaningful movement with their development.
Thank you.
I'm just looking online, not seeing any hands. Ms. Martin, just I guess in building on some of the other comments, certainly I know I've heard from a couple of businesses, as I think council colleagues have, in regards to requests for what they would characterize as modest capacity, and obviously the interim control bylaw, as it's currently configured, is such that I don't think those requests for capacity, even when the view is the capacity is modest, and I understand it may or may not be modest, I don't have enough information to evaluate, is such that there's some frustration among new and growing businesses in the community that they're not able to leverage any capacity. So I actually, I don't presume to understand this process enough, even though it is a bylaw of council, to potentially feel comfortable extending the interim control bylaw until I've myself had the benefit of a little more discussion, because I think I had understood, and I may have been completely mistaken in my understanding, that even with the interim control bylaw, we had some capacity for a little bit of flexibility in the system to potentially grant a growing business, right, that additional capacity they might need on service land. I understand the inherent conservatism of an interim control bylaw and why we're doing that, but I'm curious to know if there's a way to structure the bylaw so that when there is a little bit of flexibility in the system, it can be granted to a growing business or a smaller, newer business, if you will. And obviously, you're likely more familiar with some of these files than I would be. So my question this evening is, instead of passing or extending the current interim control bylaw, is there an opportunity to have another discussion about where we might be able to enable a few of those very small but growing businesses in our community to continue to flourish? Because as I understand it now, the interim control bylaw is fairly severe in its ability. It doesn't give you much latitude to grant any capacity, even if there's a little bit in the system. That's how I'm understanding the application of the bylaw, or the inherent parameters of the bylaw. But if you, but I welcome any comments you have at this stage.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the bylaw does grant latitude to the municipality through the Committee of Adjustment where there is capacity available, that the committee, which is comprised of council, has the, you have that, I'm using the word ability too much, but you have that option where when we do have capacity, and we did this in July of last year when we had a round of applications come in shortly thereafter, the interim control bylaw being put in place, where then the committee can decide how that capacity is allocated. So while staff will go through the evaluation process and provide that analysis, ultimately the committee, which is council, has the ability to adjudicate that and determine where those values can be. In order to bring that forward, we would have to have an understanding of what capacity is available in the system, and we would have to look at each of those individual applications and what they're requesting to understand whether or not the project can be supported. We do have developers who have submitted what their requests are for capacity. We encourage developers to continue to reach out to us to stay in communication. And we do provide updates when we can, but to even still provide their analysis, we have an understanding as the first phase of the plant expansion is completed, and we, start to understand what efficiencies are captured and what additional capacity may be brought online through that, what developments are requiring. So at this time, the bylaw does provide that flexibility through the Committee of Adjustment when there is capacity available, that we can bring recommendations forward to council/committee to provide that allowance. That is the mechanism. Staff don't have the ability without coming to council to grant that.
Thank you, and I appreciate your clarification. I don't think we've seen a capacity request through the Committee of Adjustment since last July. Am I correct about that? I only ask, and please, I look forward to further clarification. The correspondence I think a number of council members have received is that building permits are being denied, and I understand why, because there's an interim control bylaw that basically prohibits or severely limits capacity allocation. So as a consequence, what I've been hearing, and I believe other council colleagues have been hearing, is that in the absence of capacity or sufficient capacity, we're not really granting building permits where an expansion of an existing, I think, commercial more than residential property is being asked. I'm wondering, is there a way to take another look at the bylaw to see where we can meet out the remaining capacity that exists within, of course, limits? I know that there are severe parameters placed upon the municipality by the Ministry of the Environment, or is there a way to more regularly revisit, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Finley, what capacity exists? Because it just, you can appreciate, I think it hurts our heart to know there are businesses in the community that are really eager to expand. They see the demand, we're a growing community, and they're being told, absolutely, you won't get the building permit because we don't foresee any capacity in the system for possibly 1-2 years. And again, I guess it's always a balance of what capacity do we understand exists in the system, and where can we potentially enable some of our local businesses to grow modestly, understanding there are limits. So I think I'm just a bit confused about how is it that we can seize upon that capacity where it might exist in the system, recognizing that we won't get a real influx for a couple of years. And maybe that question is best directed at Mr. Finley. Yeah.
If I just might add, just in defense of the interim control bylaws, I think yes, it is the bylaw that puts the constraint in place where we are limiting the issuance of building permits where capacity is required. And again, we do communicate with the community to understand what those needs are. But it's also too looking at, and part of the reason behind the interim control bylaw is to study our servicing policies to help better support how we allocate capacity. So I would still, at the staff level, still recommend extending the interim control bylaw to allow for that additional time to have staff revisit those policies, where we could look at how do we support the expansion of businesses prioritization wise, maybe over new development coming in, to allow for that meaningful expansion. I mean, lifting the interim control bylaw or not extending it puts us in a position where we may still not be able to grant a building permit application because there is no capacity to add them to the system, and we're going to, potentially exceed our limits as established by the ministry. But I'm going to end it there because that's where my expertise ends and Mr. Finley's begins. So perhaps maybe he can speak in regards to the current situation with capacity.
Thank you, Ms. Merton, and through you, Madam Mayor. So the end of that pretty well summarizes where we are and why those intakes stopped last July. When we looked at the interim control bylaw, we looked at having 2 intakes a year, one at the beginning of the year, one mid-year, and moving forward. So we did the one in July, had our intake. There were some approvals that were granted through that. And then we were looking to the beginning of 2026, once we recalculated for the actual flows at the plant, those increased through our 3-year average, as well as the number of developments that we did approve that haven't are building, but of course we haven't realized their flow, so they stay in their calculated flow. So at this point, when you add those two together, what our actual flows are at the plant, which the 3-year average runs about 76%, and then you add on all the current approved projects, there is another 24% used up. So at this point, that available capacity, we don't have that room right now, but it is set up, as Ms. Martin mentioned, that if once we do realize some, we can come back to that committee of adjustment and see. But at this point, right now, we don't have that availability to approve.
Okay, appreciate your clarifications. Very helpful conversation, I think, for council, because we're beginning to hear, I think, some concern in the community, particularly, again, among smaller businesses that are keen to grow in a high-growth community. So I'll recognize Councillor Sullivan and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Martin. With respect to an application for an ARU or additional dwelling unit or residential unit in the serviced area of Kemptville, would an additional unit require capacity, additional capacity?
Thank you for the question, through your worship. So the bylaw did exempt additional residential units, given the incentive programs that we have currently with the that we've established through the Housing Accelerator Fund. That would be more for the standalone units, anyone and in existing homes. We've accounted for the fact that the uptake on that program in the urban area has been quite small, and so the impact was considered to be quite minimal. But that was one area that we did provide an exemption around to ensure that we could support those very limited opportunities for additional residential units.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Finley. Thanks for your last explanation. So it's very clear that we have two kinds of capacity: the estimated calculated capacity that people that we weigh the applications against, but we also have actual capacity. Now, I understand that to determine actual capacity, there's a certain lag of time in terms of flows that you can't just say once a development comes online that now we know exactly what the actual capacity is. So I'm wondering, and I hope you appreciate the thrust of this question, is there a way, given that we're on time and on budget for phase one and anticipate more capacity at the beginning of next year, is there a way that we can, given that fact, that we can collapse the lag time between a project coming online and when we actually determine what the actual capacity is? In other words, can we get some capacity, real capacity, earlier than we normally do?
Thank you for the question, through you, Madam Mayor. will want to clarify one little piece of that as well, and then answer your question. So we are on budget. We are a little behind on the schedule. We are hoping to be substantially complete at the end of this year. We're looking at the beginning of next year, so we do have a bit of a lag in terms of construction, phase one, but we're still moving along there. In terms of the realization piece, it becomes difficult because you want to see the ebbs and flows of what that development is doing in terms of, is there a time of year or over certain pieces that more flow is coming through? Say spring, they're a heavier user, summer people are away or something like that, and there's changes. So you want to make sure that evens out, because you could risk, if you do that at the wrong time, it's a higher flow than you anticipated because of whatever factor. So we want to make sure it's long enough that we see a true year-over-year effect than a shorter period. So that's the difficult part there.
So in other words, I'm assuming that it's a year lag between when we turn that calculated or estimated capacity into actual. We deem it actual. Is it 12 months?
Correct.
I'd be curious if at all it's possible to shorten that.
And again, through you, Madam Mayor, again, it's to catch that again and define when we do the average flow for the plant, the definition is the 1 year period through the ministry. So that's why we use that as that piece. That's every year the plan has that change. And so we apply that to the developments.
So it's actually the ministry that grants the actual number.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the ministry grants the number of the influent to the plant, and that's how we judge it. In terms of the developments themselves, again, we want to see that, make sure that that's doesn't fluctuate, so we use that same number. We use that 1 year period.
So, council colleagues, I'm wondering if you might entertain a deferral, not because I don't think a interim control bylaw isn't essential, because I do, but personally, I feel that I would benefit from some additional conversation about how we navigate the next few months. I know that Ms. Martin would be well aware there's a multi-residential development where there is a request for capacity. Their argument is they're a couple of years out from the next phase of this development, but in the absence of getting the capacity, they're concerned about compromising access to federal funding. We also certainly have heard, and again, I'm sure that staff are aware of these files, a smaller business looking to grow their footprint fairly modestly, but the interim control bylaw, which is our bylaw, I take responsibility for it. We are asked to adopt it at council, so I completely accept that we own it, if you will, because we grant approval. But in so doing, unfortunately, if I'm hearing you correctly, Mr. Finley, there's no capacity to meet out in this moment as you understand it. So every building permit that's coming into the municipality, whether it's residential or commercial, is not being considered unless capacity was previously granted?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Right. So that, I think, poses a bit of a challenge for the community. We know we're working so hard and have for many years to obviously double our capacity. So we appreciate all of the good work of staff around this table and our CEO and our MPP, Steve Clark, and council as a whole, because we've been aware of the situation for some time that we were getting to the end of our capacity. But I do wonder if there's a way to structure this bylaw so that as you, Mr. Finley, see that there's some capacity coming back into the system because every theoretical number isn't a real number, is there another way to potentially look at granting some of the applications that have capacity implications down the road, but not immediately, or where there's very, very modest proposals to a building being expanded? That fundamentally is my question. And I don't know who to direct it to. Maybe it's their CEO. I don't know how to navigate those waters in this moment in terms of whether or not a bylaw can be structured to allow for a more frequent revisiting of the capacity that may come back into the system, so we're not necessarily denying every application that's coming our way. And again, I fully understand that in council being asked to adopt the bylaw, it's something we need to take responsibility for. So I'm still lacking clarity on whether or not there's a little bit of a path to support local businesses in our community. Ms. Dunlop?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the 76% that Director Finley has raised is what is currently flowing through the plant. We have that 24% that is already committed to specific developments. If one of those developments should fall off, in other words, that year, et cetera, that may make some capacity available. But I don't know of any specific option without having massive liability issues that we could open the capacity any quicker. If it is council's wish to defer this specific bylaw, we have to make sure that we were brought back before June the 30th, and we can maybe regroup with the mayor, Director Martin, Director Finley, and myself to take a look at this. But I do not know of any options at this point in time to open up any capacity quicker.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question to you. Are you looking for a deferral or a referral to staff to come back at a later date because they're different?
Thank you for your attention to that detail. I think I'm just looking to see if, of course, I recognize and fully accept we need to address the extension of an interim control bylaw by June 30th. So I think it's a matter of having a better understanding, certainly myself, and perhaps this is true of other council colleagues, of where we might see some capacity come back into the system because of a development that aspirationally obviously approached us with a capacity request that may not materialize. The market is changing. We know that there are developments that may or may not come to light because of economic conditions and what have you. So I would just feel a little more comfortable myself, Deputy Mayor, if we deferred or referred. I think I leave it to the discretion of the CEO to recommend which option would be best suited for tonight's discussion in terms of how to structure the return of the interim control bylaw for council's consideration.
Madam Mayor, I would suggest that you would refer, not defer, for the fact that there may be amendments that require post-discussion.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Deputy Mayor?
I'd be prepared to move a referral.
Okay. Thank you. And Councillor Sullivan? Thank you. Well, second, and then just to make sure I'm not missing anyone on the screen, Councillor Wilson Strackanian, you're okay? Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions? And again, I really appreciate the good work of staff, and I want to be very clear. I understand that this is a very complex matter, and everyone is doing their absolute best to bring more capacity online as quickly as possible. So look forward to having this back at the council table, and hopefully by then I will be more confident in my insight and knowledge alongside council colleagues of the path forward. Deputy Mayor, anything else?
If we're referring, is there any confusion about what we're asking staff to do when we come back? Is the clerk clear on?
Or maybe it's a CO Dunlop
Yeah.
or Ms. Lee?
Through your worship, my understanding is we will refer this report back to the 23rd. We will have some internal conversations and see if there's additional information that we can provide on the June 23rd, which is our last council meeting prior to the 30th.
If there's nothing else, colleagues, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. With that, colleagues, I think we are now moving to the Buy Ontario Act 2025 amendments in regards to a repealing and replacing of some language in that bylaw. And I believe, Ms. Wheeler, you're on deck for that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is presented for council approval to replace bylaw 5617 with the proposed bylaw 7026, and it's to incorporate the Buy Ontario Act into North Grenville's procurement policy, including the Municipal Buy Ontario Directive, which supports the act in prioritizing Canadian goods and services. This amendment will assist in promoting compliance and consistency within our procurement process. Staff are recommending the deletion of section 3.8 from the policy and the addition of the domestic procurement and Buy Ontario compliance section, as well as the Buy Ontario procurement requirements, which are detailed in the report. In summary, the act pertains to all new light-duty passenger fleet vehicle procurements with a gross vehicle weight rate at or less than 4,500 kilograms, and also capital infrastructure, when applicable, includes listing each major good and service required for the deliverables being procured, vendors to submit a domestic supply chain plan and its evaluation dependent on a dollar threshold that is provided within the directive. I'm also working with our financial asset management coordinator, Director Finley and Director Torch to incorporate the Buy Ontario Act requirements into our RFP processes. So once we've drafted a template for use in procurements for when the act applies, then we'll also connect with our local boards and municipal service corporations, since as of June 1st, the directive also applies to those entities.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions in regards to this report? Certainly, I think it's wonderful to see the incorporation of some of the provincial legislation into our local procurement policies. So that's a wonderful development. I certainly, Ms. Wheeler, just had one question. I know this came up, and I don't believe you were necessarily at the council meeting because there was a provision in the old bylaw in regards to not expressing a preference for a local company. I can see that that language will be removed, which is excellent. Is it your understanding that the new language would give staff and or council the capacity to express a preference for a more local business versus, a business that was still within the province of Ontario? I can see that the language for the provincial legislation applies to obviously within the parameters of the province of Ontario. So I'm just curious to know whether or not you think we would have the capacity to choose a local vendor versus, say, one that was in Newmarket, Ontario, or Belleville, Ontario, as a consequence of these changes.
Thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. So with this, with the Buy Ontario Act, there is no reference to local procurement. So in defining the act, it is only eligible for Canadian and Ontario specific locations. And our current policy with having the deletion of section 3.8, it did, as you mentioned, had there shall be no preference given to local suppliers. Other than that content, there isn't any other language in our procurement policy to be given preference for local. And as I said, the act is strictly for Canadian and Ontario goods and services.
Thank you. And I guess the question is, and Ms. Dunlop, I don't want to put Ms. Wheeler on the spot if we don't have the information, but I'm curious to know, are we in a position with the deletion of that language, Ms. Wheeler, totally accepting that the provincial legislation makes no distinction of where you might be in Ontario, but do you think that there's a capacity for staff and council to choose a more local business or entity over another one in Ontario with these changes?
Thank you, Your Worship. The intent of the procurement is to make whatever procurement that the municipality has to work in the best interests for our position, for what we are achieving. So that is embedded in essence. What I don't think the words that were removed takes that away from us, but this is only the first kick of the can at the procurement policy that this council is going to have. This includes the Buy Canada, the Buy Ontario, which is a requirement that we had to place before council. The other is the date. Like, this is a 2017 bylaw. It is antiquated. The limits, etc., some of the processes. So when we bring it back later in this year for that review, and when I say antiquated, some of the limits, $50,000 limit has to have certain processes, and then directors have delegated authority as long as it's within budget. That is a substantially lower limit than the majority of municipalities in Ontario. So we're going to take a look at those as we go through this fiscal year, but we can also take that into consideration and tighten up the idea that the purchase has to be in the best interests of the municipality, which could mean Smith Falls versus Carleton Place.
And thank you. And I think I asked this question because at a previous council meeting where Councillor Sullivan, in fact, raised a point about the procurement of a vehicle locally versus in Carleton Place, there appeared to be a limitation on the capacity for the municipality to choose the local bid, if you will. So I think my hope is that this first set of changes give more flexibility to the municipality and to council to grant a more local bid, if that is, to your point, in the best interests of the municipality. So I think I hear you saying likely and more changes to come. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, colleagues, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you to Ms. Wheeler. Should council adopt this amendment in the next few minutes, how will we communicate with the library and the BIA that they also must comply to this procurement change?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor. So myself, along with Director Finley and Director Torch, depending on which local board and service, municipal service corporation, we will individually connect with them, but we need to be further along where we can actually provide them with a sufficient template or something to be actually useful before we do that.
Okay, colleagues, I see Councillor Strahan. Go ahead, Councillor Strahan. Councillor Sullivan, did you also have your hand up? No, okay. Councillor Strahan, go ahead. And have we
Thank
lost
you,
Councillor
Madam.
Wilson? Yes, okay.
She's just gone off camera for a moment. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess my question would be to Director Wheeler or perhaps to our CAO. And again, this may be coming back to us as one of the options, but is it possible with our current procurement policy to have weighted criteria through the RFP process that would favor local businesses to, give them in the RFP process, give them more points towards the bid, or is that forbidden from being included? And a follow-up to that would be, could that be considered for the future update?
Through the chair, so with the current purchasing and procurement policy, when we're incorporating the act, then there is actually under the capital infrastructure expenditures, there is a 10% evaluation criteria. So again, under the act, that would be if it qualifies under the Buy Ontario, and it would be a 10% allocation based on the domestic supply chain. So currently, for different RFP processes from different departments, the evaluation criteria, we would have a template that we use. I think that if we were to incorporate more of a criteria based on the location, then we would revise that with a new procurement policy when it's updated entirely.
Okay, so to summarize, it could be something considered for the future policy that would be coming back to council. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. If not, then we'll thank Ms. Wheeler for the report. And certainly we're happy to see, excuse me, the procurement bylaw evolving. The recommendation is that council adopt the amendment to the North Grenville's purchasing and procurement policy in response to the Buy Ontario Act, Public Sector Procurement 2025, and the Municipal Buy Ontario Directive. Who would like to move and second? Thank you, Councillor Strahan and Deputy Mayor. Are there any last comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. And with that, there is a lengthy list of correspondence. Thank you to our new clerk and our newly named deputy clerk for helping to consolidate that list. Colleagues, if there's any item that you would like to pull for discussion at a future meeting, you'd be welcome to let us know now. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to pull the very first one, N1, Heritage Helping Housing Building Grant, for consideration of endorsement at the next meeting. Thanks.
Excellent. Any others, any other item for correspondence? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on. Notice of motions, colleagues. Any notice of motions for consideration at a future meeting? Not seeing any. So then we'll move to miscellaneous and unfinished business, of which there is none. Period for questions. We just have one remaining member of the public, esteemed member in the audience. Do you have any questions, Mr. Beveridge? No? You've stuck with us the whole way. Impressive. Okay, so then we'll go to confirmation bylaw, that the confirmation bylaw is attached to this agenda, be read for a second, third time, and finally passed in open council. Of course, we've been in open council the whole time. So Councillor Sullivan, do you mind moving that for us? Thank you. And Councillor Strahan, do you mind seconding? Oh, Councillor Wilson's back. Hi, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Councillor Wilson will second, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. And then adjournment, and that is that we adjourn at 9:07 PM to meet again. And we'll get a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Wilson is moving us. And who would like to second adjournment, colleagues? Looking, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'll call the vote. And that carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.